are back on Inside Politics, talking with Linda Peek Schacht from Lipscomb University. We're talking about the first 6 months that Donald Trump has been in the White House and looking back at that at this point. Linda, the Russia affair, the involvement or tampering they did in the 2016 election has dominated this administration even before the administration came into office during the transition period. This past couple of weeks we've had lots of major developments in this. There's certainly a special investigator looking into this, Robert Mueller. It seems in the last 2 weeks, most people thought this was going to be a long-term investigation, talking about many months, maybe even into years, but there seems to have been developments in the last couple of weeks with the Donald Trump Jr. meeting with the Russians, and then this past week with many of the developments that came out of the New York Times interview that the president gave. Do you get a sense that we've sort of had a change in warp speed about this, just in terms of its intensity and where this thing is going forward?
Yes, but I think, again, that Donald Trump has brought it all on himself, this warp speed, because he and his attacks on Mueller have really focused every bit of oxygen on things like...
It seems to me this administration often says, well, yes, we met with Putin, yes, we've done this, but we've done this now, let's move on. Putin, I've challenged Putin about it, let's just move on, let's move on beyond Russia. Yet within 24 or 48 hours, there's something else that's back in the news, and it's usually something that came out of the Trump administration.
Well, that's right. It's just like with his negative press, it's him talking. All right, or in this case, his family talking. But the important thing, too, is when you have a crisis like this, and it is a crisis, I think it's gone from being a scandal to a crisis for his administration, you need to get out everything, get it out now, and get it all out. And instead, what we saw was a changing story over an entire week about what happened in that meeting. And yes, you can say the American people don't necessarily care about it, but it does go to the root of our democracy. How was Russia involved in our elections? So
far, the Russian thing has generated lots of smoke. So far, no real smoking gun, particularly as it involves the president himself. So when his supporters say, get off his back, let him do his job, don't they kind of have a point? This kind of goes on, but there's not much to it so far. Well,
and if I were him, I would say, I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to tweet about Russia. I'm going to accept what Mueller comes up with because he is a man of integrity and both parties will accept it. And I'm going to get on with the business of the American people and let all of you worry about this.
But it looks instead, at least by the headlines of this week, particularly late this week, this president instead is looking through his aides to look for ways to undermine and discredit the people on his staff that are doing this. And on an internal basis, he's also looking at the possibility of what can he do about pardoning his staff, his family, himself. Now, when those sorts of things are going on, how do you do all those kinds of things and focus on that and govern at the same time?
Well, even in the campaign and now into his presidency, he has really kind of broken the norms, right? The customs, the principles that we abide by. And he's doing it with this. The question will be, what will the Republicans in Congress do if he decides to fire Mueller or if he decides to pardon his family?
What do you think is behind the criticisms of Jeff Sessions? Obviously, he was not happy when Sessions decided to recuse himself on the Russia situation because of his own involvement in the Trump campaign. But is this an effort to try to get Sessions out of the way in order to put an AG in that doesn't have that conflict and maybe use that person to fire Mueller? Is that the strategy?
It could be. It would be, and I know his staff and his lawyers are telling him that would not be a good strategy. It doesn't look like Jeff Sessions is going to voluntarily leave. We had our own Senator Bob Corker this week talk about the incoherent approach that the White House has to everything. And so I think what we have to do is wonder if Donald Trump at 70 or 71 can learn a new trick, and that is that he doesn't have to fight back every time somebody is putting him under investigation or criticizing him.
So is it going to be more of the same as we go into the second 6 months of Donald Trump? Is he capable of making the kind of changes you're talking about? Because he is an old dog, and new tricks sometimes can be difficult for people who, like ourselves, maybe get up in years.
Thanks for that, by the way. I think that he is not so much is he capable, does he want to? And he has been a fighter, a counterpuncher all his life, and it's just not wise for him to counterpunch Bob Mueller, and so, or Robert Mueller. So I think the real question is, can anybody on his legal team or his press team at least calm him down and get him focused on issues, not Russia?
As we close out this Russia thing, you and I are also of an age that we have strong memories of the Watergate scandal. We've talked a couple times about Richard Nixon during all of this. Is that a good comparison with what this is about? Is it wise to make those kind of comparisons, or is this sort of a unique kind of crisis?
I think it's different, but maybe just as, if not more important. Watergate was a domestic break-in and cover-up. This is about a foreign power affecting our elections, or attempting to affect our elections. That's really big stuff. And I think...
And that's not what we talk about. Even the congressional hearings don't focus on what are we doing about making sure this doesn't happen again.
And that's why both the Congress and the media need to go back to the original thing we were looking at. And that is, how did Russia involve themselves in our elections, and how do we keep them from doing it again? And what's happened is this fascination with President Trump and his bromance with Putin has kept us from doing that.
Linda Schacht, thank you for coming on the show. We'll probably have you back again as the Trump administration continues on.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics this week. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the NewsChannel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary. It's back, and it's there posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.